Usually I do one recording a week, if that. Um, but this will be my third recording within 48 hours or so. I'm probably not going to upload it today. I mean, maybe, because am going to just lay down to sleep. So I might just leave my phone to upload it, because I think I can do it in 3 or 4 hours. But I wanted to talk about why I prefer the company of women so much more over the company of men. And it's kind of obvious if you've ever lived on Earth. Um, and um, maybe it's not even an unusual thing to say because there's that hypothetical question of like, if you go up to somebody and you ask them, would you rather live in a society that was 90% men or 90% women? Most people are going to say that they'd rather live with the 90% women. There was this book I read. Um, it basically the moral, like spiritual character of a man in the modern age is below. It's less than that of the average woman. Um, and but I guess for me, it's like a lot of guys, they have their boys and they hang out and they play games or drink beer or something. I don't know. Um, and when I was growing up, of course, I spent more time around the guys for the most part. I mean, I've always had a character that just kind of preferred the company of women in some ways. I think I've mentioned this before, but when I was younger, I can remember choosing to spend time. I wasn't really doing it in a conscious way because I was just so young. But if I was over at a cousin's house, and all of my cousins were boys, I didn't have any girl cousins, unless if they were just way older that I basically had nothing to do with. There was like two of them, and I barely knew them and barely interacted with them, barely even saw them. But basically, all of my cousins were boys, and I remember um, spending more time sometimes when I was over at their house with my aunts than with the other boys or with the dad or anything. I mean, there was definitely times, you know, I would I was definitely hanging out with the guys, but there was certainly periods of time where I would hang out with the women, and it was just kind of a natural thing. So I guess I'm kind of growing into that. Through my teen years, though, I definitely had um, mostly male friends. There was one female friend I had for a while, but we kind of drifted apart after, I guess, I got a bit into politics and stuff and conspiracies and things, and I think that we basically kind of went in opposite directions. And, I was still cool with her, but I don't know if she was really cool with me. Um, and actually, I mean, that's a big reason I've drifted apart from a lot of the guys too. I mean, that's pretty much the it's what made the emotions that made me really not really want to be friends with certain people anymore happen. It sort of set up the circumstances because I don't appreciate it when friends of mine or people who are supposed to be friends, I don't appreciate it when they think that I'm dumb. You don't have to, you know, necessarily agree with me, but I definitely don't want people to be gossiping about things that I believe behind my back and be unwilling to talk about them with me at the same time, things like that. So, there was a long time, I was friends um, with some guys, and we would play different video games, lots of shooting games, like Overwatch and Apex Legends and stuff like that. And I guess the only reason I feel comfortable saying this is because if you're one of those people and you hear my voice, I'm sure you recognize my voice. I mean, there's even a possibility, like a slim possibility, that somehow maybe I've accidentally exposed this channel to one of those people and they know that I'm uploading on it and they just never said anything. But we don't really talk anymore in person or over the internet or anything, and I've disconnected myself from them. Um, and to be honest, I'm not really like resentful or anything anymore. But I did go through a long period of a few years where, I mean, it's, every now and then I'll have an episode of just being resentful of people in general. But especially when people are, basically for me, how it worked was when I was friends with people, and then I was learning things in my perspective, and then I'm trying to share it with people, and I'm basically being ignored, and this whole part of my personality is being ignored. And it just made me very bitter. And also, I don't appreciate when people think that I'm dumb. Um, and the same sort of thing happened with my siblings. I don't really talk with my siblings or interact with them anymore. Um, I only live with my dad now. But you know, I women are much nicer. I it's just very at least this is all, my experience, my feelings, how things have gone for me. Women have almost universally, um, just almost universally, I have positive experiences with women. Um, it tends to be, uh, I don't want to say some cuss word, but just kind of uptight women that think that, uptight older women that think that everybody needs to behave a certain way. Those are the women that I tend to not have positive experiences with. Um, but almost universally, I have positive experiences with women of all ages. So, women aren't rude to me. Um, they're usually not disrespectful. Sometimes, um, you know, when a woman is disrespectful, usually she's going to be a bit sneakier about it. Like, she'll make some snarky comment that you may or may not pick up on, and that's kind of why she's saying it that way. Or she'll just gossip behind your back or whatever. And I obviously don't like that, which is, a big reason why in general I don't have a lot of like real friends. Gossip is a really big thing to me because I would never, I'm not going to say I would never, but I don't make a habit of regularly gossiping about people that I consider my friend because I consider it dishonorable and disrespectful. And I don't appreciate it. And in fact, it pretty much just makes me not want to be somebody's friend if they gossip about me. I just do not like it. If you have, it's not a respectful thing, it's a rude thing to do. And if you have something that you need to say to me, if you have some problem, then what you can do is say something to me. I don't think I've ever really had anybody do that, to be honest with you. I don't think I've ever had anybody come to me and be like, hey, look, what you're doing or something, or like what you said hurt my feelings. and this is why I think you should change your mind, or like, I just want an apology or something. I don't think I've ever had that. I've had situations where I've had some sort of trouble, and I would try to go to somebody and politely like explain the way I was feeling, and basically just kind of getting ignored. And it's like, oh, okay, well, all right. I understand that not everybody wants to solve issues that way, but this is the way that I want to do it, and so, this is all my choice. Like, if I can't have a relationship with somebody, a friendship with somebody, where I feel like if I had a grievance, um, that I can go to them and to calmly explain and just try to work something out. If I feel like I can't do that with somebody, then I don't really want to be involved with them. I have the right to have the way that I want to do things and how I want to handle my friendships. And the other people have their right to do things the way they want to do it as well. If somebody doesn't want to be confrontational with me, that's their choice. And I'm not looking for an aggressive confrontation or something if somebody has a problem with me. But that is something that I feel I would respect, even if I didn't like it in the moment. The problem is that people aren't really. People are basically, they have a heart problem. So even if they were to try to do something in a proper way, their heart is probably going to fail them, or they're going to have some agenda or something, and they're not going to be genuine. So it is what it is. It's not necessarily so much what somebody does, but what is motivating them. But anyway, I wanted to talk about women more. So women are nice to me almost always. In the town that I live next to, I have noticed that women can be very, uh, I don't know, like, it's not quite rude. I don't know what it is exactly. It's just, it's not quite entitlement. It's just, they're not respectful, I guess. And they're just kind of, like, they just kind of have their nose up, I guess. I don't know. But in the place that I drive to, um, people seem fairly normal. And I think that the men are also, they're kind of the same as the women around the town that I live. So, it is what it is, I guess. It's just a culture around here. And I don't really know anybody around here, to be honest. But the place that I drive to for work is a lot better. And, I don't really care about diversity or whether or not a place is diverse. I just care about how people act. But there does seem to be something to the American spirit in the town that I work at because of the diversity. So people do seem to be a lot more fair and non-judgmental of people when they're a bit weird or a bit strange or whatever. Because it's like we're all Americans, we're all in this together, maybe it's just the job I work at, I don't know. But there's the American spirit. It seems to be a little less um, upper middle class, snooty white person, the place where I work. So, that's cool. Women are smart enough to, usually smart enough, where when it comes to social stuff, where they're not gonna do something that is annoying or irritating or demanding or kind of rude. Or I guess what I'm thinking, what is sticking out in my mind right now is one time at my job, this girl was trying to put herself next to me to flirt with me, and it was a very obvious thing, because like we'd kind of looked at each other a few times, and we had went to lunch, And when I got back, she was at my station, kind of just waiting for me. And when I saw her, she laughed. So it was kind of like a I'm waiting for you thing. And so I did want to talk to her a bit too. So like I'm there. But this guy that I had trained earlier, I think it may have been it may have been autism, and I'm not really mad at the guy, but this is a reason why I prefer women. It's what he did was he was working next to me, and he came up and put himself between me and this girl because I guess he didn't realize what was going on, or like if he didn't care then that's worse. But I think he just didn't realize like this girl was trying to flirt with me, and so he's kind of blocking me. Now the thing is looking back on it, I think that God may have been protecting me a little bit, but well, I don't know. I like it all worked out for the better is what I'm gonna say, right? Um, the next thing that's really obvious to me is that women have better hygiene, where it's extremely rare to smell a woman when she's close by or passing by or something and she smells bad. It is really, really rare for that to happen. And it's also rare for women to have bad breath or whatever. Women, I believe, are more conscientious. If you just look up that trait on the Big Five, you'll know what I'm talking about. The Big Five is a whole personality system like MBTI. Um, and I mean, that's a big one. It's like, I don't want to be next to a man and to to smell him. And some guys, the thing is like I'm pretty sure that some guys will masturbate and then not wash, and then they'll go out in public or at work and you can smell it. And it just smells like you know, old gunk or old goo is what I'm going to say. Um, and I guess some guys just don't really realize that. And to be honest, when I was younger, I probably did that once or twice. But, the internet has saved me a lot with like hygiene stuff. I'm subscribed to this subreddit, which is just r/hygiene. And it does have a lot of different useful tips and stuff. Um, I remember seeing some people say that you should, like, when you're taking a shower, wash with a washcloth. I don't think that works for me. And, I saw on the subreddit, people were saying that's actually not true. You don't have to do that because everybody's skin is different and what they need is different. And I don't think I need to do that. In fact, I think it's rough on my skin and I'm worried I'll break out or something if I'm scrubbing my skin with a cloth. So I don't do that. I've always used my hands when I'm putting the soap on my body, and I just wash with my hands. When you're washing your hands after going number one or number two in the bathroom without taking a shower, you just use hand soap. So I don't see why I can't do that. I mean, I don't use hand soap, but, bar soap with the rest of my body. Men do have bad hygiene though, and on this hygiene subreddit, a few different times now I've seen where people will say, most people don't properly like wipe. They don't properly wipe or wash their crack. And I have never had that problem, pretty sure, but um and they'll specify it's mostly men that have that problem where like the majority of men just don't wipe enough. And that's appalling. And it's like that even if it's not a strong smell, that has to contribute to someone's overall body odor too. So, somebody walks by you and they smell bad and they haven't showered in a day or two and they just jacked off and they haven't wiped their butt properly. Like it's not a pleasant aroma and you don't really want to be near that person or even interact with that person. Um, but you basically never have this problem with women. Um, I can think of one woman who smells like cats sometimes, and that's not even a bad, like, it's not even outright bad. It just smells like she has cats in her house. Um, I guess there was another woman who kind of smelled like mildew at one point, but for the most part, I can't think of very many women that I've smelled uh, bad or had bad breath or something. Um, I guess I am pretty sensitive to this stuff because even somebody's natural clean body odor, sometimes I just don't really like it, even though there's nothing wrong with it and it doesn't stink. I can just, the way that somebody smells, I'm just like, I don't really, I don't like smelling somebody's body, I guess. I like the way that I smell, thankfully. Like sometimes I smell pretty good. On the weekends, um, I'll go like a day or sometimes I will go the whole week. I don't think I've actually done that in a while. I was gonna say sometimes I will go the whole weekend without showering, but I don't think that's true. I mean, maybe I've done that a few times in the last year or something. I don't know. But usually I'm taking one shower during the weekend, but I take a shower every day before I'm going to work. And I'll put on deodorant. I don't know if maybe I don't put on enough deodorant. I was kind of wondering that earlier today actually, but people don't seem to mind standing close to me or anything. Um, I worry about having bad breath sometimes. People don't really seem to mind getting in my face to talk to me though. What I usually do is, I mean, I'm popping breath mints all day long, to be honest with you. And I even have a bottle of TheraBreath in my car. Um, what I usually do is if somebody gets too close to my face, I will just turn my head in like this autistic, I'm not looking you in the eyes way, and I'll just speak towards open air, like away from their face. I have never been in a woman's bathroom, so I don't know what it's like in there. But, you'll see men walk out of a number two stall and they won't wash their hands afterwards. So it's like, what the heck? Like, how am I supposed to be one of the boys or one of the bros or one of the guys if most men aren't wiping properly and aren't even washing their hands afterwards? I mean, realistically, how am I supposed to put that information behind me and socialize with the boys like that? I don't know. The next thing I guess is that women are more accommodating. Um, I've talked about this before in probably another audio and a few community posts. The best example I have of this is how I usually don't cuss very often, and when a woman notices that, she will put in effort to not cuss herself. Maybe it's less of a politeness thing and more of they don't want to be they don't want to be I guess the less civilized one around a man. I don't know. Um, but I think it is a more of a politeness thing. Um, but men don't usually put in that sort of effort, I've noticed. Um, and there's other ways that, this sort of thing will happen too. I remember reading a 4chan post about eh, like some guy. was at a dinner and he was trying to grab a breadstick and the plate was too far away or something, and a woman just noticed and pushed over like the appetizers or whatever so he could get one. And that's just something that 99% of men would never do, but a good 50% of women are going to notice that and actually do something like that. And so it's just, there's more politeness and accommodation and just trying to make you comfortable existing in the world and trying to involve you in things, I guess. I don't know. Um, the last thing, the major thing, like one of the biggest things is how I know that women can be very promiscuous and gross, but I don't see that. And I'm talking about my experience, I guess, mostly here. And I think that most people would agree that men are more perverted than women most of the time, to the point of being inconsiderate and disgusting and rude. Um, Whereas I don't really like have as much of a problem with women because I mean maybe something happens where you're the subject of somebody's gossip or something. And to tell the truth, as a man, I think that you just don't really care how women are talking. And if anything, it's more of a compliment. I mean, maybe you should consider it as insulting and rude, but you just don't, or I just don't at least. Like every now and then, I'll kind of be like, I don't even know that anybody is doing this, but I can only assume, that there's some trashy people or trashy women that say things that are just kind of rude to say about another person. But to be honest, I just don't really care all that much because, you know, like this, again, this is me personally. It just doesn't harm me or hurt me or bother me. And this is just all about the way that I feel. I'm not saying like this is all like all these opinions. This is just how my experience has been. I'm not even saying these things are necessarily objective fact or anything, but I mean a lot of it is. So, I just made an audio about the subreddit Love After Porn. And it's just the sort of thing and just you feel really bad for women just dealing with men and having to marry men like this and things like that. And I just don't get along well with any guy who, if I even suspect a man is a creep or something, I just don't really want to be buddies with him. And the thing is just that lots of guys are really pervy and gross. Um, and I just can't get along with that very well. I can't really get along with it with women either, to be honest with you. Every now and then, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like I do have a pretty, like my sense of humor can be extremely pervy, but it's not even that so much that at least in my mind, I'm not even so much that I'm being pervy. It's just I think it's funny. Um, I guess the way that I would see it is I know if I'm being pervy because my body's going to have some physical response or something. So if that's not happening and I'm just making a joke, there's kind of a difference there, I think. Um, but I'm not trying to say I'm better than anybody here or anything because I'm not. Um, kind of forgot my train of thought, but it basically goes back to, I mentioned reading a book that said something about how man's moral character in the modern age is just less than that of a woman's. And that's basically the problem here, is that most men just don't have good enough character. And if you pay attention to, this is mostly on Reddit, I guess, because it's where I can see the inner thoughts of a lot of women, when they're talking about men. I can't really find it on 4chan, or I can't really be privy to these conversations in real life or anything. Um, but on these subreddits where they're talking about their marital issues or whatever, most of them will say, or a lot of them will, that the average woman is just better than the average man. And it's not even wrong. That's the really disturbing thing. And that's why I think people are, there's people don't really value men as much as they value women. And I think this is basically why, because it's like if a majority of men are gross perverts who don't even wipe properly, how do you how do you get along well with that person? Like, how do you do that when that's in your mind? You know what I mean? And if you're a woman, how do you not have some sort of resentment for men when everybody's trying to have sex with you and they're gross and they haven't showered and like don't seem to not understand like basic social things. It's like how do you even get along with that? How do you not resent that? You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean that's me talking about why I tend to prefer the company of women more than men. Um, and I think that's all about all I have to say right now.